In this video, we'll go over the setup and operation of the Metalman 65 amp plasma cutter from Technoweld USA. Let's start off with an overview of the machine. This is a 65 amp portable plasma cutter with the ability to hand cut both ferrous and non-ferrous metals, and it also is CNC capable with a pre-installed CPC port to easily install onto a plasma table. It can run off of 240 or 120 volts using the included adapter. The front panel has adjustments for your amperage as well as your input voltage and a special mode for cutting expanded metal, and the compressed air input has a factory installed filter and water separator. Next, we'll go over the setup of this machine to get it ready to cut. First, we'll begin by connecting the torch. There's a rectangular key on the connector. Position that to the top and then slide the all-in-one connector into the machine. You can then secure it with the nut around the outside. Next, we'll connect the work clamp to the DINS connector on the left. Insert and rotate clockwise to lock that in place. Next, connect the compressed air on the rear of the machine to the quick connector, and then plug it into your power, either 240 volts or use the included adapter to connect it to 120 volts. On the front of the machine, select your input voltage, either 230 or 120 volts, and then you can power on the machine at the back. Now, with the machine powered on, you can select your amperage for cutting. This will range from 20 to 65 amps when you're running on 230 or 240 volts, or up to 22 amps when you're running on 120 volts. If you're making interrupted cuts, such as expanded metal, select the gridding mode. Otherwise, select the cutting mode for standard cutting of sheet and plate. Now that the plasma cutter is set up, let's go over how to make a cut with this machine. Now, before operating this machine, be sure to refer to the safety information in the owner's manual. Before cutting, connect your work clamp to your material. Now, during the cut, maintain roughly a 1/16 of an inch gap between the end of the nozzle and the workpiece. You can do this with the included standoff as shown right here, or you can remove the standoff and control that gap manually. This is also how you'd configure the torch if you're using a CNC table that connects to a hand cutting torch. Now, to start your cut, press the trigger near the end of your material and begin cutting. If you see sparks ejecting up out of the top of the material, that's an indication of a travel speed that's too fast. They should be coming off the bottom at a slight trailing angle. Now, adjust your amperage up to cut thicker material, such as this 1/4 inch thick plate. And during this cut, notice the sparks eject up there at the beginning, and now for the second half with a steady, consistent travel speed. You can see the inconsistency from too high of a travel speed. However, you do get a clean cut with very little dross when using a consistent travel speed. Next, when you're cutting thick plates, such as this 1/2 inch thick plate, it'll require a slower travel speed throughout the cut. So watch the sparks to make sure that they come off at a slight trailing angle just behind where you're cutting, and you can get a clean cut with very little dross on the bottom. You could use the same technique to cut non-ferrous metals such as this aluminum right here, and you can also cut through materials from the center, sometimes if you need to cut a hole. So begin to pierce by holding the torch at a 45-degree angle, press the trigger, and roll down into position to begin your cut. Now, if you need to cut expanded metal, then use the switch on the left of the panel and adjust it to the gridding mode. And this will allow the pilot arc to reignite over and over again, so you can cut continuously through using the exact same technique on expanded metal. Next, I'll show you how to change the consumables in the torch and basic maintenance on the machine. To access the consumables, remove the retaining cap from the torch, and inside the cap you'll find both the nozzle as well as a swirl ring. The nozzle is one of the primary consumable parts, as is the electrode. Now, in order to remove the electrode from the torch, you can loosen with a wrench and then remove the threads. Inspect the end of the electrode for excessive pitting. Some pitting is going to be normal, and also check the end of the nozzle for excessive wear that has taken it out of round or created a large diameter hole. If you have pitting in the electrode or wear in the nozzle, it's good to replace them both together. To reassemble, thread the electrode back into the torch and snug tight. Next, install the swirl ring in the same orientation it was in when it was removed, and follow that by the nozzle. With these components in place, you can secure them with the retaining cap, and the torch is reassembled and ready to use again. That's how to set up and operate the Metalman 65 amp plasma cutter from Technoweld USA. If you have any additional questions, be sure to reach out to Technoweld's customer service and enjoy that new machine.